So RTI is quite a good technique when you use photogrammetry, as there's a bit of extra equipment to use, but overall it's rather the same. So if you're having to be portable, it's not too much effort to pack a few extra bits so that you can do RTI as well. I tend to use RTI for all sorts of things now, but so small objects, but also stone monuments. And often the problem is that you can't actually move those, so you have to make do with what you actually have available. So you can't move the object, you have to kind of do things on the fly, so an RTI dome doesn't generally work in those situations. So here we have, like I said, rather similar equipment. We have the camera on a tripod directly in front of our object. You have to make sure it's quite stable, so make sure you have a good tripod for that one. Then you need a second tripod, which will hold your RTI ball, your reflective black or red ball. This is what the software uses to track the changing light positions. Different size balls will be necessary depending on what targets you're using. Ideally, you want the ball to take up about 200 pixels of your photograph. But you also want it positioned near the center edge of the surface or object you're recording, so it's kind of a balancing act. So I have multiple sizes available for the different artifacts or monuments that I'm recording. So the big one's generally for large stone monuments, and then depending on the size of the artifact, the two smaller ones are handy. All these balls have little flattened edges, which makes sure that they're stable during recording. So you want to get the ball near the center of the object, as I mentioned. You don't want it to get cast too much shadow if we can help it. And how we do this is that we have this threaded metal pole, and the ball actually sits on the end of that pole with this hole that it has there. And the way that you get the pole positioned onto the tripod is that you have what's called a shoe umbrella holder type E. And so this is more generally used in photography for holding umbrellas and things and controlling light, but it also works for holding this metal pole. It has a threaded base so that you can attach it to your tripod. Usually has a couple different options that you can change out. So I'm just going to get this set up here. So you want to make sure it's in the frame, obviously, because otherwise it won't do you any good. But we also have to check and see how badly raking light will cause shadow on the object itself. You want to avoid it as much as possible. But sometimes it's unavoidable, so you just have to kind of go around or work around those lighting positions. So I'll just check that here. When you're using or choosing a light to use for your RTI, I tend to prefer a squarer one than this. As you can see, my light has quite a bit of, well, it is a spotlight, so it has a spotlight effect, which you want to try and avoid. So a squarer or kind of broader rectangular one, although it can be LED or whatever, those are preferred for RTI. Right, so camera settings. So as you can see, you want to be able to have your object or area of the object that you want to record in frame. I have a color card there. What's more important is the gray scale bit on there, and it's not the best color card, but it will do. And we've got the reflective ball in the frame there. Now, one of the most important things is that RTI, you don't want things to move. So, in addition to the camera, you can use a trigger system. Now, this can either be and that is attached with a wire to the camera, which is handy because it doesn't take any batteries or anything, but it is another wire to keep track of while I'm trying to do this on my own. So what I prefer to use is, because my camera is an Nikon, I tend to use this app, SnapBridge, and so it allows so it connects to the camera and I'm able to do remote photography that way. So, and the other thing to keep in mind is that first off, well, once we get the lights off, what we'll want to do is we will start in autofocus mode on the lens. This is a 50mm lens, as you can see here, hopefully. Yeah. So it's a prime lens, which is pretty good for still photogrammetry and RTI. So we will start in autofocus. I will take I'll set it up so that it is focused on the object with kind of the peak lighting position on it, and then I will turn it off to manual so that we don't have the camera autofocusing. We need everything to stay in the same place in the photograph, for otherwise the RTI won't work very well. So everything needs to stay in the same place in the frame of the camera for the entire RTI. If things move, then you either have to start again or spend a lot of time in Photoshop fixing things. But anyway, as you can see with the SnapBridge app, I can see essentially the live view from my camera. Could zoom in a wee bit, but sorry, actually. And so you want to be roughly perpendicular to the surface that you're capturing. So I'm going to move this here. Say roughly perpendicular, I mean, well, for a lot of things, they aren't particularly flat. But in this case, we have a wall and a bit of paper, so right. And so you want to go perpendicular to the camera. And should be all set there. As I said, I'm going to get the extra light out of here. Then I'll just shut this. Great, so we minimize the amount of lighting that we have interrupting things. So to get this set up, I will turn on my light, and this is essentially the brightest it's going to be on my camera. So switch to this. I'm going to set the shutter speed to adapt to this. So my settings are 1/10 of a second, aperture's 13, and my ISO is 400. I could turn that down a bit, but we'll go with this, I think. Actually, I'm going to have it at 1/15 of a second because of how it's going there. So now I'm going to autofocus on the scene. I'm going to check in live view to make sure it actually does it. Not too bad. Okay. I'm going to turn off my autofocus. I'm going to switch from live view, turn on my trigger, and I'm going to take a test shot. And I have a look here. Looks pretty good. The color card helps to make sure that everything is looking sharp. Now I will continue with the RTI. So essentially you want to imagine, so you don't need a dome. but you kind of want to imagine what a dome would look like. So you want to have your lighting positions in a mostly kind of the same sort of distance away from the object at all times. Isn't too fussy, so the software isn't too fussy. You should actually be able to manage even if you are off by a little bit. So some people use string. I tend to just kind of use my the space that's allotted to me. Sometimes you don't have even amounts of space on either side. So you pick a direction that you want to start from. I usually start across the top. So I take control there. And I'm going to imagine this dome, point the light directly at the center of the object again, and continue. Now, when you have wooden floorboards under your feet like I do, you want to make sure that you aren't taking the photo too soon after you've moved. Even the slightest vibrations can throw these things off. So some people decide how many positions they want to do from the outset. I kind of aim for 4 or 5 positions on a ray, I guess if you want to think about it that way. But otherwise I kind of just go with what you're able to achieve, because obviously the black reflective ball is going to block some of the positions I would otherwise be doing on this side, and the tripod as well, which is unfortunate, but that's how it works with these things. So I try to make up for it if I can with adjacent sort of positions. So in the fields, if it's a big stone or something, then you can't really move these things. With smaller objects, you have a bit more flexibility, but sometimes not always. Right. So as you can see, the shadow is coming across it a little bit there, but I'm trying not to affect it too badly. So you can see I have to be careful about that tripod shadow. That's as far as I'm going to manage there. I do want to come from the bottom. So because the ball is on a pole, you have to be careful to make sure that's not going to move much either, so you don't want to bump the tripod holding the ball either. Switching over to the other side. You hear some squeaky floorboards. So I'll just give it a minute to settle after me moving. Hopefully it'll be alright. You guys will be able to tell in the RTI. This is part of the reason I like to use a broader light source, because with such a spotlight, even when you aim at the center of the object, sometimes there's a bit of a difference in the coverage of the light, which isn't ideal, but we'll see how it looks. So you can see it's usually helpful to have a second person here to handle the light. And I can always do that, but If you're going to do multiple RTIs, it's always good to have should be good to have a lit image to indicate that it's the end of the run, because otherwise some things can look rather similar. So, that's how you do RTI in the field, and in the next video I'll show you how to actually process the data that we've gotten from this specifically, and hopefully you'll be able to see the secret message I wrote on the bit of paper, or impressed on the paper.